Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC Guy. Today we're going to wrap up the project that I started last week on creating the Greasy, Grimy, Grotty track here on the Piedmont Southern. So let's not waste any time. I want to get started and finish this job. So let's go. Now, one question that I was asked in a comment after the last video was, why would I apply ballast, expensive commercial ballast, throughout the entire set of tracks that I'm working on here, and then cover that all up with the DAS modeling clay? Why not just put on DAS modeling clay directly and forget about doing the ballasting? Well, there's several reasons why I can think that you would want to do that. First of all, in a lot of cases, you might not want to cover the entire length of the tracks that you're working on with the DAS clay. You might just want to have spots of it, or you might just want to have it being a broken patch of grotty track like that. And that might be on a siding, something of that nature. The only area where you're going to want this heavy, dense, thick layer like this one here would be somewhere like in front of an engine house or a fueling facility or a ready track like I have here, where locomotives are going to be sitting for long periods of time, and you're going to have a lot of drippings of oil and grease and water and ashes and everything else building up. So that's the one reason why I would do it in certain areas. Also, when you're moving from one area to the next, like going from here to here, and this is a test track that I made up, and it has the DAS clay all the way up to the ties here, whereas this one I did not apply any DAS, and this one is an area of ashes over top of the ties. So when you go from one area like this, where you've got that heavy, dense application of grimy, grotty track, to one where you don't, it just makes it so much easier and it flows much better if you've got cinders throughout the entire length of it. So that could be another reason why I would do that. And also up here where you've got the ashes applied. And by applying the ballast throughout the entire length, it allows you to experiment as you go with applying the DAS, because you don't have to apply it all in one time. You can come back and add more if you feel that you need it, or you can't take it out. So by putting on your layer of cinders and then coming back and applying spots of DAS clay on a siding or something of that nature, it allows you to basically customize the effect that you're going for. Well, everything is dried. We've got a pretty good orange colors all the way through here. Looks pretty bad, but we're going to take care of that. And for that, I've got several different colors of paint. So first, I'm going to start with weathered black, and then to kind of mix things up, I have Model Flex Grimy Black. And if I really want to get dirty about it, I've got two different colors of acrylic brown here. This one is just plain old brown, and this one here is espresso. So I don't know if I'll use those or not. We'll see. Okay, so I'm just going to dip out some and start painting over this orange here. And I'm not concerned about the rails, and it's probably going to take a couple of different coats in order to cover this and get it pretty well knocked back to black again. And once the paint dries a bit, I'll go over the heads of the rails with my piece of cork roadbed and wipe that clean. So it's doing a pretty good job on the first go round. Not bad at all, actually. I'm going to work this out onto the cinders to make sure everybody's got a good, common, consistent color about them. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off, and I'll come back when I'm done. Now, one thing I will point out is I went back and applied engine black for the second coat here on the track because I like the much darker, denser color that I get from engine black than I do from weathered black. So that's what you see up here on this track here. This one back here, as a test, I did some weathering just to make sure that I was going to like it. And back here, I have more of the weathered black on the surface showing than up here. And to be honest with you, I think that I like the darker, denser color of the engine black. So I'm probably going to go ahead and just paint this over using engine black to get that darker, denser color. Okay, so I just wanted to let you see what this weathered black paint looks like. So it's sort of a dirty, dark gray. And that's what I'm going to be using here. And we'll do some dry brushing. And for that, I just have a scrap of cardboard that I'm going to use for that. So I'm just going to dab my brush in the top of the cap of that weathered black paint. And then I'm just going to scrub as much of that paint off as possible on the surface here, because you don't want much left. And then I'm just going to run some of this here in spots on this area in here. Okay, so you can see that it's dulled down just a bit and is looking closer to this area back over here. And you can keep doing that, just dabbing a little of that weathered black paint, and then just scrub off as much as you can using an old piece of scrap cardboard. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to hit some of these ties with more of that weathering. And you don't want to apply a lot of this because you just want it to be sort of a spotty thing around here. Otherwise, you don't get that effect. You want the effect of a variety of colors in here. So then I'm just going to do a little bit of touch-up weathering here, throw some on this grate to pop out those a little bit, and we'll hit the heads here on these bolts, the bottom, to get that looking good. So there's just a little bit here and there that you can do to try to make things look better. Now, one option you always have, if you're not happy with the way it turns out, is to just get your engine black out again and give it another light coat over all of that area that you've messed up. And let it dry and do it again. Because remember, this is going to look like a buildup of greasy, grimy, grotty track, and you want it to look that way. And so building up a little bit is not going to matter. But you can see you can make these details pop quite nicely, particularly when you want to bring out those ties. Now the next thing I want to do is apply some ashes on the steam locomotive holding track here. And for that, I've brought up one of the N&W J-class locomotives on an adjacent track so that I know exactly where things are going to be applied, need to be applied. So if you look right there where the rear truck is on the locomotive itself, that's where I'm going to want to apply my pile of ashes. So let me do that. And for these ashes, since I don't have a charcoal grill here in the house, and I don't use coal or wood for fire, for heat, what I did was on July the 5th, I went out to a local park here near me, and I just dug up a bunch of ashes out of a barbecue pit. So these are the leftovers from somebody's 4th of July barbecue meal. And then I just ran this, sifted it through a couple of different soil sieves that I have. You could use window screen that you get at the hardware store, something like that. But basically, you want to get out the big chunks of leftover charcoal briquettes or wood or whatever it is that was burned in there, and also any leftover chunks of hamburgers and hot dogs and whatever they were cooking for their 4th of July celebration meal. Before we go on, I want to ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It's simple, easy, and free. All you have to do is hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. Thanks now. So this is what my ashes look like. They're a nice gray color. They have sort of a tannish hint to them. And there's pieces of black left over from the charcoal in there, little flecks of that, some little flecks of white. I'm not sure what that is, but it gives you a nice color mix right there. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to empty a bunch of this out here. I'm going to want to put it right here on this track, right in the area where the firebox is located on this locomotive, and the ashes would be coming out. And for that, I need to pull it back out of the way now that I've dusted a bit in order to be able to get in here. So I'm just going to put in a little bit right in here, like this. Like that. I'm going to put a little bit more over the edge here as well. There we go. And I think I'm going to do, another little patch just a little bit further up here. So we'll do another little bit right in here as well. Okay. So that's all I'm going to do right in that area. And now, just to get this settled a little bit, I'm going to take a little brush and we'll get it off the rails, like that. There we go. And bring a little bit of it back up in here. I do want just a touch of it right here on this other one. There we go. So that's all there is to it. I'm not going to mess with it because I like the way that it's kind of naturally formed its own little pile. Okay, now how do we go about stabilizing this? Well, for that, I need to get out my alcohol and my cement. Okay, now for gluing this down, you have to be very, very careful because it is so fine that if you're not, you can easily mess it up. So I'm coming in from the side, placing small drops around the ashes so that that will flow by capillary action back up into the ash pile itself. So you can see how that's moving in there by itself. And it just takes a little bit to do this. I'm going to flow it from the top of the rail right here and let it just flow in there. I almost feel like I need to hold my breath while I'm doing this. You have to be very careful with this because if you get a drop of it down on the ashes, it's going to make a little bubble there or indentation. Okay, that pretty much seems to have it done. Okay, so now I've got my pipette of my scenic cement or my ballast cement that I make up. And we'll just apply that and let it flow in to the ashes. Okay, I'm just going to leave that sit and let the cement flow into the particles between all those ashes. And then we'll come back once this dries and take a look at how it came out. Okay, while the ashes are drying, I want to apply some fine sand for the sand test. Now for this is just play sand. I bought a big bag of it some time ago at the hardware store, and it is very fine stuff. So I think it's going to work fine for the purpose that I have. I'm sure you can find, a little spoon or something like that to use to apply these small amounts, but you just want to be very careful about how much you apply. And then I'm just going to take it and make a little pile right here on this side of the rails. And then I'm going to do it right at the same spot on the other side, because when they test their sanders, they do it on both sides at the same time. And it's just a small little bit of sand that comes out there. So you can see that one. Let's do another one here where the front trucks might be. I'm just tapping it against the rail. Whoops, I had too much come out. Okay, let me get that out of the way real quick. And I'll vacuum that up in a little while. Actually, I can bring it back up in here and just create my pile. And it's the little details like this that catch your eye and keep your interest as you're looking at a scene. Okay, now I'll probably be adding more further back, but I think that'll give you enough to see what I've got here going on. So let's go ahead and apply the alcohol and our ballast cement in order to get this stabilized. You can see it just runs up in there really quickly. It's a slightly larger particle size than the ashes, so the alcohol can just flow up in there quite quickly. Okay, now we'll do the cement. Okay, so it's all settled in now, hopefully, with the ballast cement. I'm going to turn the camera off and walk away and let it dry. Well, the glue has all dried. Everything is settled into place now. I vacuumed up the excess that was scattered about and applied a little bit of greenery to make it look a little bit more lived in. So let's take a look at the finished job now. We'll start back here by the water column where I've got my Carolina Northwestern RS-11 locomotive. And then let's go ahead and pan on up to where we can take a look at those ash piles. And you can see them sitting there next to one of the J's on the main line. And you can now see some of those sand piles from where they've tested their sanders. And we can go on up here to the end of the waiting track or the holding track, so you can get a good idea of what that looks like. And let's come on back here now, and I'll zoom in a little bit closer on those piles of ashes. And you can see the colors in those, but I'll tell you right now, the lights tend to wash those out. So I'm going to turn one of the lights off and give you a better view of it. So that's really what it looks like in person. So it's a little bit more tan into it and some gray, and I think it looks a lot better there. But we'll turn the lights back on so we can see what we're doing here. You can see that the weathering has brought out the individual ties a little bit better, and you can see the ends of those ties now as well. So I'm kind of happy with the way it turned out. I still have other areas here on the layout to try this project out on, because I do have a number of places where my switchers sit here in the yards, and that's a good place to do this as well. Well, that's a wrap for today's video in this project. I hope you find that you have a place on your model railroad where you can try out this technique. But as I said in the video, before you do that, make yourself up a little test track like I did here and try it on that. And that way you won't be messing up anything that you've already installed on your model railroad. But there are probably lots of places where you can use this, even on a modern model railroad. You can use this at engine facilities where locomotives are being fueled and serviced and that kind of thing, and on ready tracks where they do just a lot of sitting around. So give this a try. I think you'll find that it works very well, and it's something that you can explore different techniques and degrees of application. So have a great weekend, have a great week, and I'll see you here next week with another video from the DCC Guide. Bye now.